Hey, everybody, and welcome to our April webinar. Today, we are talking about the 7 steps to a primal brand. We're taking the concept of Patrick Hanlon's book called Primal Branding, and we're going to apply it to you and your firm as it goes through. We're running this webinar a little bit different. I don't know if you can tell, I'm on a cruise ship. So normally when I do these, I've got my laptop up as well to take the questions live. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to the questions during it. If not, I'll jump in afterwards and get to as many questions as I can. Sorry about that. Just trying to make the best of the situation. So here we are talking about the 7 steps to a primal brand. So we're going to go over what makes a primal brand, what are examples of primal brands, and then is your firm a primal brand? And if not, how? So when we're talking about a primal brand, we're talking about 7 things outlined in the book. And we'll go into these in more detail, but a story, a creed, icons, rituals, language, pagans, and then leaders. And what we're talking about when it comes to that primal brand is that company that you truly connect with. It's that difference between Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks. It's that difference between Microsoft and Apple. The second ones being those companies that truly have that almost cult following. That's a primal brand. It's the one that you truly connect with, that you become an advocate for, that becomes a part of you. And so obviously, most brands are not primal brands. And there might even be some kind of firms that don't want to be a primal brand. If you want to be, burn and churn mass volume, it may not be worth it to put in the extra money to be a primal brand. But when you want to be the go-to expert, the number one best option for people to come back again and again, send friends, advocate for you, whatever that looks like, that's when you want to start incorporating these 7 things to become a primal brand. So the first one we're talking about is the story. It's the background of you and or the background of your firm. It's that story that talks about where you originated from. It gives viewers something to connect with, something they can believe in, something that they can trust. They can either identify with your stories or identify with a similar struggle, or just appreciate that you've been through all these things to get you to where you are now. And we'll give some examples after we get through the 7, and then we'll talk about how it applies to you and your firm. So the second one is the creed. This tells what your followers believe in and how it might be different or similar to other belief systems out there. Very religious, totally. Like every religion has a creed, things that followers believe in, things you can consider about the followers versus people that don't follow that religion, follow a different religion, follow that brand, etc. So the story is kind of what draws people to us. The creed is what do we know about the people that identify with our brand, or what do we want to know about them? Next becomes the icons. So it's those quick associations. Hopefully, for me, the Hawaiian shirt icon. So that's part of the reason why I wore it. It's these little things. It can be visual, or it could be a smell, or it could be a sound. The sound of a lightsaber flicking on, the sound of a transformer transforming. Those kind of things are icons inherent in primal brands. They're things that you latch onto. Then rituals, again, very religious. So rituals are the repeated experience associated with your brand, whether it's positive or negative, the kind of engagements your viewers and clients have with you to build up a certain expectation about your brand and future experiences they can expect to have. So from the religious standpoint, we've got a bar mitzvah, we've got a communion, things like that. For you, it may not just be the process of hiring your firm. We'll talk about that in more detail, but it's the rituals that people go through. Hopefully for the positive when your brand jumps in. Hopefully it's not them getting arrested for a second or third time, losing their business, etc. But we'll go through those at the end. All right, next, we're talking about language. So all belief systems or brands have their own set of language, have those words with special meanings for those who buy into the belief system. So if someone wants to be, quote, part of the group, unquote, what are the words that they need to know? What's that inside lingo? What are those specific things that you talk about? I think one of the things that does a really good example of this is Traction, or EOS, talks about making sure everybody on your team has the same lingo. So it's not our rocks versus our quarterlies. It's everybody has the same one. It's not setting expectations weekly versus daily versus monthly. It's everybody knowing what things are set when. It's the language that everybody uses to build that community, to build that brand. Now, the next, pagans. So this is the 6th one. Every belief system has a group of non-believers. And so who are your non-believers? Who are your pagans? If you are an Apple person, your pagans might be people that don't use computers. It might be people that prefer Microsoft. If it's Republicans versus Democrats, and you've got this non-believer. And by setting who you're not, it can help you figure out who you are and can help you attract attract you to the right people by knowing who you don't want to connect with or who isn't supposed to be part of your brand. And this goes back to that whole concept of niching, as opposed to wanting to be everything to everybody, wanting to be a threshold lawyer or door lawyer. If somebody goes to the door, you do that area of law. That's not going to fit for the Primal brand. We need to set up those pagans. The cases you don't take, the people you don't work with, the counties you don't go to, whatever that looks like. All right. And then lastly, when it comes to a Primal brand, according to Patrick Hanlon in the book, there has to be a leader. There has to be that specific person. And look, it could be Jesus in Christianity. It could be David Koresh when it comes to the Branch Davidians. It doesn't necessarily have to be good versus bad, but it's setting up that leader. And so I think the easiest way to go back through these 7 is to go through some examples. So the first one, look, we're in Orlando, or at least normally. Right now, I'm not. So we're going to go through Disney. So Disney's our first example. So when it comes to the story of Disney, and we've got this kind of in 2 directions. We've got Walt Disney sketching out Mickey on a flip book. We've also got Disney flying around looking at, where to buy what would then become Disney World in Orlando. And inherent in Disney, we've also got other stories, the stories of the characters, the stories that Mickey gets involved in, the stories the characters get involved in. From a creed standpoint, we've got the happiest place on earth, the most magical place on earth. We've got spending money to have that magical experience. So when it comes down to the people that prefer Disney, the things that we can expect about them is they're willing to pay more for great service or great experience. They're not cheaping out on a SeaWorld or a Fun Spot, kind of call back to our last webinar that we did about positioning in there. But they tend to be nicer people, right? Especially with everything going on currently now in Florida. Disney creed tend to be more LGBTQ forward, things like that. What are the things that we can know about the people that are part of Disney? What are part of those creed? So icons, look, there's a ton. If you watched our last webinar, we had the rundown of, you make movies to create characters, to sell in the stores, to bring people to whatever it is. You got all those things. But at the very core, we've got Mickey, we've got the ears, we've got Cinderella's castle, we've got the Epcot ball. We've got all sorts of icons when it comes to the Disney universe, the Disney realm, which now obviously incorporates, a bunch of other places. But we're strictly talking about kind of that Disney brand, not some of the other brands underneath it. So when it comes to rituals, you can go to the park, you can pose with a character, you can get their autograph, you can watch the movies, you can celebrate fireworks at the castle, you can be an annual pass holder. There are all sorts of rituals we go through over and over and over again when it comes to being part of Disney or connecting with Disney, or that being a brand that we truly believe in. So language, again, this one comes up a ton. You've got Walt Disney World, WDW, you've got annual pass holders, AP, you've got fast passes, you've got the mouse, you've got Kim from our team was explaining when we did this presentation before that there's a whole word, and I'm going to forget it now. Sorry, Kim, about when adults can't wear costumes. So there's like a whole underlying current of what adults can wear to sort of be their costume, and there's a word for it. Obviously, I'm not a Disney brand because I don't remember that word, even though she explained it to us. So pagans. This is a really interesting one that comes up. Universal Studios fans or SeaWorld fans probably becomes the obvious one. But as part of my nonprofit, I'm the vice chair for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Florida. So we had the former VP of Disney come to one of our events, and we also had the former owner of Fun Spot. I guess now it's with the kids. And we were kind of joking with them about like, oh, you guys, are sitting across from each other across the table, as enemies. And they were like, no, you don't understand. Really, our pagans are people that go to Vegas instead of coming to Orlando. People that don't travel here. Once you're here, you can go to multiple parks. So the pagans for Disney might be people that don't go to Orlando or don't go to California and travel somewhere else. People that don't like the movies, that don't want to experience those things. Those are the pagans, setting those things up. People that want to be mean, that don't want to be happy, whatever that looks like. You can set who you're not appealing to and let it go from there. So leaders, again, with Disney, I love using this as the concept because we've got leaders in multiple ways. Obviously we've got Walt Disney and to some extent Roy Disney. More recently, you've got Bob Iger and Bob Chapek, but then also you've got Mickey Mouse. You've got Buzz Lightyear, you've got Woody, you've got the leaders inside of the different things that Disney creates. And so by having all these 7 things in place, Disney has a bunch of different options to get more people truly connected to the brand, to feel that primal pull, to really have those things set up. So I want to use a example B, something that is more in my nerdism, Star Wars. So from a story perspective, We've got Luke on Tatooine. We've got an evil empire. We've got multiple Death Stars. We've also got, George Lucas filming this movie on location with miniatures, etc. From a creed standpoint, Star Wars and Star Trek, very different, even though they're both sci-fi. Star Trek is a lot more science focused. Star Wars is a lot more space opera-y. So people that like that space opera, that like that little bit more action, that like that less, hard science might appeal to Star Wars a lot more than Star Trek or some other sci-fi. It's not as science as Star Wars. It's more nerdy than your normal action movies. Although, going back to, Disney buying everything, it's a lot more mainstream now than it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, etc. So icons, again, a ton of icons, and not even George Lucas, not even Harrison Ford, not even Mark Hamill, but the lightsaber, the sound of Vader breathing, the look of the Millennium Falcon, the sound of the lightsabers fighting. All these things create icons inherent in Star Wars that we can jump on. So rituals, you can watch the movies, you can watch the TV shows, you can go to, I guess, Disney now in this case. You can build your own lightsaber. You can attend some of the different events and parades they have on. You can join the 501st, which is a collection of people that have, basically movie quality stuff. 501st being from the Empire side, they get together on parades. They've been in, like, The Mandalorian has had some of them come in to play extras, things like that. You can really get involved in this. You've got different levels of those rituals making their way up. And then language, a ton of things. I've got a bad feeling about this in all the movies. May the Force be with you. Luke, I am your father. All those things, as well as not being a Trekkie, being somebody who's interested in Star Wars, things like that. And then pagans, again, we've got a ton of options. People that hate sci-fi, people who prefer Star Trek or prefer Harry Potter or prefer, some other story, people who don't watch movies. Jokingly, my wife, although my child will tell you my wife loves Star Wars because I love Star Wars and she's wonderful. So, and then obviously from the leader's perspective, we've got so many leaders in Star Wars, from Sith Lords, from the dark side, from Jedis, from the light side, from the rebellion, whatever it looks like. There's all sorts of leaders to fall behind. And again, we're not talking about leaders having to be good versus bad. Right here, we've got Darth Vader as one of the leaders, even though Vader is bad in theory. All right. So when it comes to your firm, I want to look at this in two different ways. You and your firm. There are some situations in which you and your firm are one and the same. You're the only one there, and everything is very muffled, or not muffled. It's combined. Like, you are your firm. It is an extension of you. There are other firms that are larger, and either you're building a personal brand inside of your firm, or you've got slightly different firms. Like, from my perspective, so Jordan Law does personal injury in Orlando. We normally work with blue-collar professionals who are injured, and they normally don't connect with me. Like, I'm not doing the legal work, I'm not doing the intakes, etc. So the personal brand for Jordan Law, or the firm brand for Jordan Law, is different than my personal brand, because my personal brand is more looking for lawyers from the LegalEase side. So the difference between a law firm owner making $750,000 or more a year with their firm versus a blue-collar professional are very different. So when we put together these stories, when we put together this social media content, these presentations, whatever it looks like, things that I'm pushing to attract people on LegalEase or pushing Lawyer with a Life, my personal brand, are different than what we're doing with Jordan Law to try and get those ideal clients. So when it comes to that story, what's your story and what's your firm story? The easiest one is, if you have been through the work that you do. If you have unfortunately been in a car accident and now do personal injury work, if you have unfortunately gone through a divorce or been the child of divorce and now do family law, those become stories that are combined in a very personal way, but appeal to a bunch of people. If you remember what it was like as the kid going through the divorce of your parents, you might craft your message and you might cater towards people going through divorces with kids to try and provide the most seamless change possible for the children. And you'll attract a certain kind of person that wants their kid to not have to go through the fire and brimstone type divorce. Make sense? So from a creed standpoint, it's that ideal client. It's, what do you know about that ideal client? What do you want them to know about you? Why do you want them to be attracted to your firm? What do we know about people who go with you? There are, from an estate planning standpoint, there are going to be people that appeal to new parents who just had their kid that are putting together their first estate plan. And that's a specific creed. That's a specific concept. That's a specific moment in time that those people are going through that makes them realize, hey, it's time to get an estate plan. The flip side of that being, if you're working with older people, making sure it's correct before they need it at the end, or with the kids of those people, that's going to be a very different type of creed, a very different look, a very different jargon. Whatever it is that you're going to use to appeal to those people, it's going to be different. And what do we know about those people? Being younger, being new parents, being older, or being the kid of older parents, we're going to know different things about them. That goes into the creed. So icons, look, the easy one for your firm is the logo, is the name, is the branding. That's an easy one. But are there other things? Again, I go back to the Hawaiian shirts, Lawyer with a Life, not really anything on Jordan Law. However, from a Jordan Law standpoint, we don't have a stuffy office dress code. So an icon for us there might be, shorts or sweatpants or something like that. It's not going to be a full suit. Whereas there are plenty of other firms that one of your icons is going to be that full suit or that pocket square or that specific color dress or whatever it looks like. Having those things in place will help identify you and identify the firm in a specific way. And from a standpoint of bringing clients in from icons, maybe there's a piece of swag that you send to your clients or a series of those things. Maybe there's something else that they can really connect on with your firm that draws them in. Like for us, targeting that blue collar professional, from a male standpoint, we've got the our logo, red, white, and blue. And also it's basically the sports team's logo. So it's the NFL, NBA logo in that color, white in the middle, red and blue on either side, those kind of things. So think about how those icons identify you and how they appeal to the people you're trying to target, and how they can use those icons to get those ideal clients to connect with your brand, to identify with your brand, to really feel what you're putting out there. Then from a ritual standpoint, I touched about on this. For the most part, it's going to be how people hire you, unless you've got a really good ongoing relationship with clients. Maybe like my firm, we do a Cinco de Mayo party, I would say every year, although we haven't done it in a couple of years. We do a Friendsgiving party. We've got some events like that people can attend and be consistent at to see us, to get to know them, to have this two-way conversation in a little bit more time. If you are a business lawyer, there might be a monthly newsletter that becomes a ritual, reading the newsletter, learning about new things. Maybe you've got a live show, the ritual, people going to the show, watching it, getting the information from it. Think about those things to the extent that you have clients that will connect with you for a long period of time. Think about those things that you can do over and over again, or have them do over and over again as those rituals. Make sense so far? All right, so we're going to switch to language. What lingo makes someone in the know? And this one is interesting because for the most part, we're not talking about LegalEase. We made LegalEase as a dad joke, but it really becomes so applicable. So it's not necessarily your clients having to know what reasonable suspicion for a stop means or what a durable power of attorney is, things like that. But is there language that you use specifically for them to jump on? Like we talk about firms trying to find their unique selling proposition versus their onlyness statement versus, whatever they want to call it along those lines. Is there a similar thing for your clients? Do you have a specific way of doing things? And look, we can't, patent or trademark case law or something like that. But maybe when it comes time to an estate plan, you've got some sort of language that you use specifically to let them know that it's holistic, to let them know that it incorporates their business, to let them know that, it talks about their kids and grandkids and legacy planning. I don't know. But really, it's thinking about that language that people need to know so that they're in the know, for lack of a better term. From my standpoint, I look at when I see other lawyers talking about specific things about their marketing in the same language or the same manner or the same take that we have on it, that lets me know they're in our circle. They're in the know. They're following our stuff, whatever that looks like. All right, pagans. Who is not welcome at your firm? And again, I touched on this before. The easy one is the cases you don't handle. Those are your pagans. If you don't want to do high conflict divorce, if you don't want to do business litigation, if you don't want to do domestic violence cases, those become your pagans. Those become the people you're not looking for. And then you get more and more specific. So in essence, the pagans is the opposite of your ideal client for the most part. The more that you are focusing your ideal client, the more you're creating pagans of who are not your ideal clients. And again, I'm not saying that tomorrow you need to say no to 75% of the people who call. But as you continue to build towards a specific person, saying no to the very outskirts or the areas of law you don't do, great. Then it's the cases that you're not super comfortable with, whether it's they have a specific need, it's a specific monetary amount that's too high or too low, it's a county you don't like, whatever. And then you start working your way into that center circle, that true ideal client, that bullseye client, that center of it all, by looking at who is not part of your firm. And so if your firm is tech savvy, if you are paperless, if you are a remote office, then you're going to be focused towards people that are also tech savvy, that also like the remote office, that don't need to come in and see an attorney in a suit standing in front of a bookcase full of lawyer books. That becomes your pagan. And so maybe it's you making some jokes about it on social media in a constructive way, from the firm, from you, whatever that looks like. I personally am not so big on directly calling out a specific colleague. So like we don't feature other people's ads and hammer them on it, but we do make jokes about the super aggressive lawyer with the sleeve slightly rolled up standing in front of the bookcase. And I hope all of you are thinking about a specific person near and dear to you, at least geographically, who does that, because that was such a push for lawyers for so long. And now we're finally coming back from that to a more personal brand, a more niche-y feel, a more lifestyle type brand, etc. So that's something to think about when it comes to your pagans. And then leaders, look, the easy one, you are the leader of your firm. That's not going to be the case for everybody. And so depending upon different state ethics rules, you may not be able to use a non-attorney spokesperson or something along those lines. But who is that face of your firm? Is that you? Is that a brand? Is that, I don't know. But thinking about that leader, the easiest answer is it's you, but there may be a more specific answer that fits. And so by putting those 7 things in place, that will be the things that help you create a primal brand. And look, the one that we didn't talk about, obviously, boom, doing a great job. Like that is always going to be the table stakes of everything that we talk about. That's always going to be the bare minimum. So this is on top of being a great lawyer, on top of doing great work. And it's not that every single thing you need to do needs to hit all 7 of these things, but you may be able to share great client feedback on social media, which talks about the creed, who is the kind of person that works with your firm, who's the kind of person your firm reacts to. You may have a ritual of events that come up consistently, or an onboarding process that is ritualistic. You may be a little bit more personal in some of your stuff to talk about you as the leader. You might share your story with more consistency on other posts, or in your onboarding, or in your newsletter, or when you're talking to referral sources. It's ways to incorporate these 7 things overall, not that every single post, every single point of contact, every single email needs to fit all 7 of these. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to make clear, because it's really easy to look at this and say, okay, we need to do, A, B, C, D, E, F. I think that's 7. G, I guess it's 7. Anyway, it's about incorporating them overall in the social media strategy, in the onboarding, in the events you put through, in the conversation referral sources, in the testimonials that you share, in the advertisements you run, in the logo you put together, etc. It's all about making this cohesive. So like I said, I'd love to take your questions and answer it. I just don't think I'm going to be able to do that because I'm going to have to jump off over my phone. So whatever questions you have, drop them below. And like I said, I'll go back through this later. I'll answer your questions. Worst comes to worst, I'll jump on another video. Again, I really appreciate you all being understanding of cruise ship technology in 2022, post-COVID not being the most internet friendly, but so be it. With that, thank you all so much for joining us, and hope to chat with you all soon.